I call the City of Shelton study session meeting to order. First item on our business is our weekly commission reports. Commissioner McDowell?
You may go first this time?
Okay, you're
Okay,
sitting over there.
sure.
So.
Well, it's a quiet week, except it's going to start picking up because school's starting, so there'll be lots of things to go to. This week, on Friday, I have my Women's Republican Luncheon that meets this first Friday of each month, so I'll be doing that. And since we're not here next week, I left board next Tuesday morning. I just thought I'd announce that now.
Oh.
Because we won't be here until Tuesday evening, so I announced my morning meeting. Left board meeting next Tuesday at 8 a.m.
All right. Commissioner Moore, did you have some?
I do. After being gone a week, it seems like I've been gone forever, so I'm happy to be back. I had some family issues to take care of. So this week, the Community Pride celebration at the high school, I plan to attend that tomorrow evening. I'm excited about that. And then on Thursday, I have a Mason Transit Authority board meeting, and that's all I have for this week.
Okay. I have no scheduled meetings for this week, and that concludes our weekly commission reports.
Can I ask Tracy something?
Sure.
Is that Community Pride meeting tomorrow night at
Yes.
the high school? What time?
I believe that the music starts at 5:30. They have a band there, and then the program starts at 6:30.
I'll probably be there too.
Yeah, I
So
think
I'll announce
that is the right time.
Okay.
Okay, general public comment. I think we have one person signed in.
Marilyn Vogler.
Okay.
Afternoon, ma'am.
Sorry, just be on your good honor. I don't have the 3-minute button here, so be
I
on
won't
your
take
good
too long.
honor or whatever.
Marilyn Vogler, 420 East Poplar. I want first to point out an article that appeared in the Olympia newspaper today, Super Downsized Tiny House on Tour. This is one of the container freight houses, 320 square feet. The Pierce County Master Builders Association held a container house contest among local colleges. And this one was designed by, I think, the students at Bellevue Community College. They hope to sell that one for $150,000, but are saying they can probably build them for $30,000 or $40,000, which falls in the category of affordable housing. I want to read one brief paragraph. It says, the interesting part of the project is getting through the permitting process. That's the hard part. Permitting agencies have yet to develop rules that speak directly to the tiny house movement. I hope our permitting people, our public works people, our commissioners, our city administrator are looking to the future in developing rules that will be compatible with and facilitate the building of tiny houses. The second thing I want to mention is a comment that was made at last week's commission meeting about the reduction in fees having brought about an increase actually for duplex owners. At least that's the way I understood it, that somehow what you all did in February meant duplex owners were paying more than they had been. I don't recall, and I think I was at all of the meetings about that fee reduction, but I don't recall any discussion of an impact on fees for duplexes or multifamily. If it was unintended, I hope you will rectify that immediately. And if you really did intend to kind of slip that under the rug while you were reducing other fees, I hope you will reconsider, because increased fees for multifamily housing, whether it's duplexes, triplexes, apartment buildings, really are a disincentive to affordable housing. And that's where we have to be moving. So I hope you'll look into that you will take action to correct it. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Anybody else? That's it for now. We have another opportunity a little later on. And are we ready for a reading of the consent agenda?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, and could we please have that?
The consent agenda, vouchers numbered 12406 through 12485 in the amount of $210,374.19.
Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I move we approve the consent agenda as read.
I second that.
There's a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The agenda passes. There is no old business at this meeting, but there will be an item under new business, and I'd like to turn our meeting now over to our Parks and Recreation Director, Mark Ziegler, to talk to us about some art.
Thank you, Your Honor, Commissioners. Once again, bringing to you recommendations from the Shelton Arts Commission for artist placement in the Civic Center Rotating Art Gallery. The City of Shelton called for artists to submit to this process with a deadline of August 19th, 2016. We had 2 artists submit work for placement in the gallery. The Arts Commission met on August 23rd to jury the works, and we're bringing to you these recommendations today from 2 artists. One is Catherine Irving. I believe you have copies of the art in front of you, I see on the table. So Catherine Irving has a few 2-dimensional pieces and then some 3-dimensional pieces as well that will be placed with your approval in the display cabinet at the top of the stairs to the entrance to the city offices upstairs. And then Steve Hendrickson has 5 pieces as well that are being recommended today with the approval of the City Commission to place this on the consent agenda for next week. I believe it's September 6th meeting. The Arts Commission would install the work on September 7th, and the artwork would be up through November 30th, and you will hear from me sometime around that time with new recommendations from the Arts Commission for new artists.
Well, is there any questions or comments at this time?
I just want to say I'm eternally so impressed with the quality of the art that we have on display. So thank you for keeping it coming.
Absolutely.
Looks good to me.
Is there possible way down the future getting some downstairs cabinets for people for this type of stuff? I know the top of the stairs. Is that a safety issue or?
It just would have to be the right location. We have to
Yeah.
find the right location for it and have the right
I
the
think-
right size and
I'm not sure
proximity.
if a lot of people go up. I mean, during the week, there's people that go
Yeah,
up. But
absolutely.
There, so it'd be kind of cool to
Yeah.
have some downstairs
Yeah, I think
cabinets.
the Arts Commission would appreciate any opportunity to display more public art at any
So,
time.
for example, like Kathy's husband, if he built the custom cabinet with locking apparatus and wanted to donate it to the city, we could find a place to put it.
Who?
You
My husband?
brought it up. Yeah. Can he make?
He can umpire a baseball game, but he
Oh,
he
okay.
can't build anything.
Well, it is possible that someone might be able to help make something
I think
like
that'd
that
be
if
cool.
that was, well, more people would see it down. I kind of thought about that too in the past.
Yeah.
Just the employees kind of go up there almost, Okay.
We do have Public Works and Building Department, and offices, Parks and Recreation, offices such as that where the public are entering.
That is
So,
great. Stop and look at the artwork upstairs.
Absolutely.
Okay, good.
So I think we all like it, and we're all going to
We
go
are.
with it, so I
Great.
think
Very
we'll go
good.
ahead and follow your recommendation to place this on the consent agenda for September 6, 2016.
Yeah, great.
Have an opportunity for administrative report.
Couple things. So we conducted our finance director interviews on Thursday. We are moving forward and having discussions with one of the candidates. I would expect that by the time we meet next time, that we will have an update on that.
Good.
We also are starting to move forward with the management assistant role, so Vicki Look's role, and we'll be working on that this week. That one could take some time to find a replacement for Vicki, but we are going to look as much as possible to see what we can do with that role, and then we'll move right into the Community Economic Development Director role as well. Beyond that, we're going to have Darren give a quick update on an event from this morning, and then we'll also have Greg give some Public Works
Oh,
information.
Many of you are aware we had a bomb threat at the courthouse, and it's a county building, but unfortunately, because we've always done it that way, in this county, this becomes a city issue. And so unfortunately, I was out of the area when it happened, but the guys did the training, did the protocol, handled it appropriately, it was all clear, and all that
Greg?
I wanted to speak to, Commission took action on some utility rate corrections that were found by
Thank
our
you.
finance director, Kathy Byerly. It was early, late winter, early spring in February, and we brought those in front and back before the commission to explain and the corrections that were needed in order to make it a level playing field between specifically some of the duplex-related items. And sit down and get it in front of me here. The mark. This is a copy of the strikeout version of that we brought to the commission in early February. And you can see it changed both some stormwater language, sewer language, and water language within the codes, really to level the playing field, because specifically with duplexes, and I'll speak to the water-related ones specifically, duplexes, older duplexes, some of them were built with a single water meter, and then both dwellings were served off of that single meter. Well, for years and years, they only had to pay one base rate, and then they paid a consumption charge. When we did this correction, it changed it from dwelling unit, or from the single dwelling unit to the duplex. So the vision here is that the newer duplexes had 2 meters set, and so each of them were paying, as they should, a base rate charge and a consumption charge for each of the dwelling units. The ones that were built in the older years that had single meters, they needed to actually receive the correct bill so that they were similar to and exactly like the other dwelling duplexes. So the code was changed to reflect the change in it saying dwelling unit versus account. And so as you go through here, there were some other related changes in stormwater that also added the dwelling unit, and that's on page 1. A reference to state law with regard to utility matters and drainage was added. The service area was changed from city limits to service area in the sewer area because we had sewer service in areas outside the city limits, so it was changed to be correct there. These are really a lot of just housekeeping related items. Outside the city limits, again, there were changes made there to be correct. The indirect cost allocation was set at 15% in the old ordinance, and of course that changes yearly with the IDC now. So that was changed on page 3. Same on page 4 at the top. Page 5, emergency call-out, same IDC change. Then we get down into the monthly sewer rates, and it changed the word from meter to dwelling unit to be correct. Anyway, you can go through these. It really, the biggest change was to do with the water service, and as I mentioned, we changed it to be specifically to the dwelling units, so that consistent across the board. If you have a duplex, you get charged for each dwelling unit of that duplex, just like it should be. It should be a level playing field, whether you built your duplex in the 40s or you built it in the 2000s. And so those are the changes in here. Be happy to respond to any questions.
I have to make a comment first. I own a duplex inside the city limits of Shelton, so I'm going to excuse myself from this conversation because I don't want any appearance of any comment or anything pro or con on this issue. I think that's what commissioners should do when they own property that is being talked about in this issue. So I won't take part in the conversation or the vote on this issue. So at this point, I will chair the meeting and the other 2 commissioners and ask him questions and do whatever. Maybe our city administrator wants to chime in, but I cannot do it because I own a duplex.
I do have a comment, question.
Certainly.
So you have a duplex and the meter ran to just one duplex? Or did it run to both?
With the older duplexes, a lot of them were set with 1 meter. It would go into the structure, and then so it would split to both dwelling units. within
Okay.
So the owner or whoever got the bill, I don't know how they would distribute it. They either pay it themselves, or they may split it in half, but there was no way to know how much one unit used versus what another one used. And that's still the case with those old ones. We didn't force them to go in and add another meter so that they were separately metered, but we do change it now to each dwelling unit gets a separate bill.
So this is running some more money for the owner, the people who own the duplex.
The people that own the duplex, if they were an old single meter duplex, would be required to make, just like newer duplexes, you'd have a base rate plus your consumption for each of the dwelling units
Okay.
in that unit. And
Okay.
that's really the change, the housekeeping change that was needed so that, like I say, we weren't charging really different depending on when you built your duplex.
All right. I may have more questions for you.
Sure.
I do,
Yeah.
There's the shut-off issue too. When you have a single meter and they don't pay the bill, whether it's either one of the tenants or the landlord or the owner, and we go out and shut off your meter, obviously you're shutting it off to both buildings, and that's kind of problematic. So I'm not exactly sure how we're dealing with that. I'd have to get back to you on that. But in all reality, we should be able to shut off each dwelling unit separately, but of course we can't if there's only one meter.
So why is the owner receiving a larger bill? I mean, the water there isn't any more water being used than there had been.
Remember, water bill is a combination of your base rate
Right.
together with your consumption.
Right.
If you only have one bill, or one account for both dwellings, you're only getting one base rate charge.
I
And
understand.
then the consumption may be a little higher because your consumption for both units.
Okay, I
But
understand.
that's the...
The base rate is,
The base rate.
it's kind of, that's the issue.
And for 16, I believe that was around $10, and it's actually on page 6.
Okay.
It's $10.60 for a 3/4 inch meter. is your
Okay.
Base rate.
You answered my question.
I appreciate the clarification. I watched last week's meeting this morning and thought, oh yeah, I remember that. So I appreciate the clarification on this. I do remember the discussions, and I remember we were all in agreement that this type of housekeeping is necessary from time to time.
Yep.
No, thank you.
Thank you.
Do that. One other item, are we done with that one, Mayor?
I can't comment on it, so I imagine if you're done, you're done.
Okay. The other is to do with water options that we were hopefully bringing forward.
Let's go back to this one for a second. I'll ask a public question about this. Here's where I think the confusion comes in. Just a general statement. Is you have existing duplexes, and then you have future duplexes. I think when we talked about it before, I did not think we were going to be going back and charging existing duplex people more money. That may be where these commissioners were or weren't. I thought this was for future. So just a thought out there is when we're going to change rules and stuff, usually any new ones we do that. So I'm either way or whatever, I just think when I voted for it, I did not think we were going to go back and then say, okay, now anyone that does this, you have to pay more money. Usually it's anything from this point forward, we do that. I think the issue of shutting off the water is a serious one. And maybe the city has to be the ones to work with the home on changing that. I don't know, but that sounds like a kind of a safety kind of like a thing, You can't shut water off to somebody that didn't, So, but back to my issue on the duplex, I was thinking that was all future. Because we were talking about the UGA and things like that kind of in the conversation. I don't care which way this group goes. I just wanted to make a statement. When I voted for originally, I did not think we were going to take existing people and raise their rates.
Is Oh,
I
I'm
just
sorry.
wanted to respond.
Okay.
Of course, any new buildings that come in, if you came in today for a duplex, you would get 2 meters set, and the codes would be consistent with it.
Right.
So there isn't anything, going forward other than aligning with the developmental requirements of the current code. This, again, is for those that only had 1 meter set initially, and we aren't retroactively charging them for all those years that, the
No.
meter, that wouldn't be right either, I agree. But at least from this point forward, they'd be the same as any other duplex. That's all the code change was meant to be. And it does mean that they pay another base rate, as they should, because they're a separate dwelling, but that, I believe we talked about that, but I didn't listen to the tapes
So,
or anything.
for example, if you owned a duplex and you paid $10, now you are to pay $20, which means the owner of that duplex would raise the rent or require the people renting, under their existing agreement and whatnot with the owner, they now got a little bump overnight. They have to pay more money. Whether it's the owner that pays or the tenant pays, someone's got to pay now additional money inside the city limits. Not retro, not future. This is just kind of like, okay, now you got to do it. From this point forward, you have to pay more money, right? And so how much on a duplex? Is it just $10? Is that what it is?
The second dwelling unit base fee would be another $10.60 for this 2006.
Okay. So I don't care how it all goes. I'm just trying to make sure I understand for, where we are and what we're doing. So it's only $10.
But if you have 4 or 5 duplexes, or you have
Well, it's
apartments
for
in
each
one.
dwelling unit,
Right.
you'd have that additional charge, yeah. Going from 1 meter to 2 meters for a duplex would require another $10.60 per duplex of additional cost.
Excuse me, Greg, if I remember correctly, this conversation was separate from the whole fee reduction that we did from that conversation. This was a whole different piece.
I
I don't remember me being in the seat when this was discussed. So
No.
it had to be before the fee reductions.
No, it says it was
February.
introduced in February.
It was introduced in February, and you guys adopted it in February 29th, and all 3 of you signed it here. So I don't remember exactly what was all discussed, but
And just for information, the person that came last week that talked about it, I think they have got new bills that were much more than just $10 more. Sometimes we say, this is all something is, so I think we need to be very clear, because the person that, I don't think they would have probably even walked in the door if it really was just $10 more. They might have, but that's something that I think, if it is, if we say it's $10 more, then that's all it is, but the person that walked in the door last week, I don't think would have done that if it had been just a $10.
it was this ordinance change, Mayor, that
Okay.
brought forward whatever their changes were. Like I say, this affected the storm rate, and it affected the sewer rate, so they very well may have had additional charges based on those.
Yeah.
So the person would be paying, and they added on more than that too.
Right.
So that would be like 30 or 40.
I don't know, Mayor.
Oh, but you understand that if a citizen was complaining about that, and overnight, they have to go to their renter, and they have to say, you were here under this existing thing, and now I got to raise your rent by $40, because the city just put $40 more on our building. It would be an automatic, pre-existing, you would have to get that, it's more than $10. That's what we're looking at. So just when you all think about this, it's not just $10. It's an increase of the other things you're talking about. And usually when we vote in increases, we do it to everybody, kind of like in the city, or we do it to future, like a future. This would be for a future. So we're kind of selecting out, in a way, duplexes, and we're saying, okay, lady that you're on your food voucher and your rental voucher, tomorrow or next month you have to pay $40 more because the city has put a $40 fee on this duplex. But just automatic, just from day one or whatever. So that would be where the complaint came probably last year. It wasn't $10. It was 30 or 40 bucks maybe. And that would be a fairly big rent increase in a low-income area.
Maybe we could invite him back or get some clarification as to the amount he was questioning so that we're not just going on guesswork
That's a good
as
idea.
part of this
Yeah, I
discussion.
don't like guesswork.
That's a good idea.
And
So we talked on Friday. I talked to him on the Friday. Correct me if I'm wrong, this sounds, so the $10 is just for water?
Yes,
So the extra, what were the other fees, correct?
must have been.
And from the research we did this past week, it looks like 6 or 7 years ago, there was a change that intended to include duplexes that were existing that did not get included and sat, because of the way the code was written, sat for that time without an increase. When it was caught last year, this correction was brought forward. So
Yeah, okay.
there was some discrepancy between new duplexes and old duplexes that sat for a while, but for folks that didn't know, this did hit them pretty quickly. And how many addresses are we talking about, like the speaker we had last week?
In rough numbers, around 40 duplexes, I think, were affected by this change. The change came about from when the finance department was moving to utilize the new Tyler system, and Kathy was going through the particular elements so that you could get the bills all automated and everything. That's when she found these errors and discrepancies, and that's why, actually, we didn't bring it back, but it was brought back to the commission in February and discussed so that we could be all consistent going forward with the Tyler finance system. And
I think we need more clarification on it, and I'm not going to vote on it because I don't care what the city does to me. That's the way it is. I'm not going to fight for my issue on a rate increase. But I will just try and say a couple of comments that we should know exactly how much it is, how many it's going to affect, and the fact that a citizen really is paying the rent. They're going to be affected by this decision, and because of our screw-up 6 years ago or whatever, that the landlord and the tenant did not have anything to do with this, except that all automatic, Merry Christmas, you are now paying $40 a month more in rent. I think it should be phased in or something. Not, you can bill me for my duplex, I don't care. But for anybody else, usually you don't automatically say, oh, we made a mistake, now it's $40 a month more. I don't like the way that feels. But I want to know, is it really 40 or is it 10? And how many people are being affected? And, you know, maybe they should get a notice and say, here's what we've done, this is where we are. What do you think about raising your rent $40 a month? I mean, usually you just don't do that. Usually. So I think we need to think about it for another week.
Well, there isn't really a motion here.
No.
This is just a clarification
Yeah.
Right.
on this ordinance that we adopted, so I think it needs a
But we
lot.
did put this is, they're getting the bills now. And if we only have one complaint, well, maybe it's not that big of a deal. But I do like
Get more.
real numbers. It's not 10, it's maybe 30 or 40. And those people didn't do anything wrong. We somehow missed it. And now we're trying to automatically say, okay, now you got to do this. Well, sometimes, you know, you got to phase things in or something. I just feel for low-income people.
So it's just not duplexes, am I right? It's hotel, motel, triplex, multifamily, mobile home, trailer parks, government facilities, and industrial customers? Is that what we're looking at?
the changes in the code that happened, I highlighted.
Okay.
Everything else is just the way
The same it
always
was.
All right.
Just the
So
highlighted.
Just the
This
highlight.
was what was reviewed and
Mhm.
acted on by the commission back in February. If you want us to, we can go back and figure out how many people were affected and to what degree. I don't know what that amount of time would take to figure that out, but if that's your desire, we will find a way.
Well, I would just count the duplexes, right? I mean, it's pretty easy to know how many duplexes we got, don't we have a way of doing it?
I don't know.
I don't know.
I'm
Maybe
guessing.
it is hard. I don't know. The other deal is it $10 or is it $40? And I guess I would turn it over to the city administrator to try
out a little
to see a little
more.
more information on this, you know, whatever. And again, do what you're going to do with my duplex. I don't care because I don't know. want to vote in that, but I do know just like Marilyn said, if we're raising $40 a month on a low-income duplex to a low-income family, because we didn't do it 6 years ago or whatever when we were supposed to, then they're the ones being punished, and maybe they shouldn't be the ones being punished, I think we've talked this one through pretty well. Okay, thank you for bringing that forward, Greg. All right, next to general public comment. Oh, just have to sign in. Let's let him go first because you've already spoken once. So just sign in your name in 3 minutes.
I think you have to sign in first.
Yeah, you do have to. And
I wouldn't want to violate.
no. Station name, record.
Randy Lewis.
Okay.
I'll finish filling it up. Yeah, to Marilyn's point, she'll probably talk about it. I watched the tape, maybe I wasn't paying attention, but it seemed like he was talking about more of a new construction or something. I don't know, which doesn't sound like it would be affected here. Other comment I would make is, it can't be that hard to get the data on which are duplexes. I mean, you're already identifying them somehow in order to make the extra charge. So that information is in there somewhere. It can't be that difficult. I agree with Gary. I think something like this, it doesn't sound like there was a heads up given to anybody. Maybe there was, I don't know. But I was just wondering, it sounds like you have water going to a duplex. Before you're charging one base fee and then whatever the total consumption was for the duplex. And now you're charging 2 base fees. I'm just wondering, and maybe you explained this, I'm just wondering, of the 2 units, how are you allocating the total consumption if you don't have separate meters? How does that work?
I don't know. Generally, we don't have questions to those. You can just, this is general public comment. So
Okay.
you can say those questions and then just.
My question is, I'm just curious how, it's easy to say, okay, there's 2 or 3 or whatever units, therefore base fee is 10 or whatever times the number of units. But if you only have 1 meter, well then how do you go about allocating the consumption among the different units if you only have 1 meter? That was my question.
I would just say, generally speaking, in that the water bill will be included by the landlord in the rent, probably.
Okay.
Generally,
You have to figure out how to
because
allocate.
you can't. Well, or you put a private meter on it, but
Yeah, I think the landlord it's just a lump sum. There's 10
it's
apartments.
only one.
Well, 1 meter, but there's 10 apartments.
They would never have that.
Right.
It's only on a duplex. They would
Okay,
have that.
all right,
And I was under-
very good.
Okay, yeah, you're in a minute. Okay, Marilyn, did you want to come up?
Marilyn Vogler, 420 East Poplar. If this is to level the playing field, then we ought to charge similarly for triplexes. What is the difference between a triplex and a duplex, really? And then if we charge for triplexes, let us charge for apartment buildings, because those are separate dwelling units as well. It seems to me that if the landlord includes utilities in one's rent, then shut-off is not a problem. The landlord pays the utility bill, and it's a matter of collecting the rent from the renter. We all know that building affordable single-family housings is not possible unless we're talking about tiny homes, and we have to work on permits for that. That a normal, average-sized home cannot be built and be affordable. The answer is in multifamily housing. And we should do everything we can do as a city to make the construction of multifamily housing feasible. If these are rental units and there is 1 meter, and I don't see why if they're rental units and the landlord pays the utilities, there have to be multiple meters, then there should be 1 charge. If code requires individual meters, then it seems to me a level playing field demands any multi-family unit, whether it is 2 units or 100, be built in a comparable manner.
Thank you for your comments. Anybody else? Mr. Olson.
Mike Olson, your questions as to fairness, whether it's fair to an existing duplex to be charged now. Well, you know, you think about making it a level playing field, how many years did they go by without contributing to the system? You know, probably a lot of these duplexes never paid any kind of a general facility charge to begin with because the city didn't address those back in the day. So I don't know that you're on the right track when you talk about fairness, because each family has an impact on the city's infrastructure, whether it's stormwater, sewer, or water. And we should all be paying a fair amount to the future in taking care of this infrastructure and the uptake and the maintenance on them. And as long as you're at it, I agree with Marilyn that triplexes should be billed each meter on each resident on that. And also, I think that you've missed all these illegal accessory dwelling units that are out there. Converted garages in the back of a house that is a separate address even. Many of them are 117.5 or something where they're only using 1 meter. I think that if you're going to talk fairness, then those should be picked up too and put on this system, because they're being served by 1 meter and there's 2 residences. Having an impact on the city's infrastructure. So, that's all.
Okay. Thank you for your comments. I will make a clarification there a little bit. The fairness isn't to the landlord, the fairness is to the renter.
Still an impact.
Yeah. And so what I'm trying to say is low-income people having an automatic $40 addition in their budget is because we didn't somehow do it when it was supposed to be done. That's where the fairness issue goes. So nobody likes surprises, but I think we'll talk about it and we'll see what we can do. All right, I think we beat that horse pretty dead. So next is administration final touches.
One note about the options for our well.
Yes, we had hoped to bring back to the commission next Tuesday evening the discussion on the $400,000 with regard to pressure line out from well 1 to well 3, where it would connect to Upper Mountain View. As staff has dove deeper into the details of how to make that work and the operational changes, pros and cons, we're going to need another week, if not longer, to make sure we have all the details for the commission. We don't want to not be complete. So stay tuned for that to be brought back
Thank you.
at a later date.
Okay.
That's it for us.
Okay. Our next meeting will be, because of the holiday, will be next Tuesday, and this meeting is adjourned.